committee is recommending that whole packages of public-private partnerships be implemented simultaneously with a portfolio approach to multiple projects. And certainly we are very much in favor of risk diversification and that goal in and of itself, but we don't believe that the knowledge base on public-private partnerships is yet at a place where this recommendation is merited. You've said that the failure rate is higher in developing countries, and we certainly have indications. The World Bank failure rate upstream in sector reform, which is really necessary for the success of PPPs, is 45%, and downstream transactions 38%, but of course that's an average, with the failure rate in energy distribution, for instance, energy being the #1 sector that infrastructure financing is targeting. The failure rate for energy distribution is 67%, which is very, very daunting. But even those rather sobering numbers are very misleading. And I think evaluations are conducted sometimes when the infrastructure has not even been fully constructed. Of PPP contracts are renegotiated in favor of the investors in a very short period of time after the infrastructure is already launched. And also caused because success and failure are defined so narrowly. Success is defined as profitability, and the evaluation says that development outcomes are positive, but the user side of the PPP is a very tiny percentage of the calculation of development outcomes. In the Asian Development Bank, it's less than a quarter of the overall rating of development outcomes. Situations that we don't know how PPPs are benefiting the poor, that PPPs do not provide additional resources to the public sector. Now the committee said that the PPP costs need to be offset by efficiency gains or other benefits. But the World Bank and many, many other sources say there's mixed results on efficiency. That went into Portugal. They found 2 road PPPs were costing the government more than its entire transportation budget. These things, if they're not quantified up front, are a problem. And lastly, in terms of the cautions, we really don't see environmental sustainability and climate being emphasized. So my first recommendation of 4 recommendations to the committee and its ongoing dialogue with the General Assembly and with other stakeholders, I would respectfully submit the OECD position, namely that there be no institutional, procedural, or accounting bias, either in favor of or against public-private partnerships. Their committee focuses on national strategies and mainstreaming sustainable development in national programs. Many of these cross-border and regional projects have very few, if any, means to mainstream the very values and precepts that the committee rightly supports. And an exclusion is very common. Governing PETA, the World Economic Forum PETA Business Group, which is really significantly dominated by banks and transnational extractive corporations and energy corporations. And we're really worried because, the committee's report makes a wonderful, wonderful contribution in talking about the shortage of credit for SMEs. And so, again, NEPAD agency will not speak to civil society as far as I know. And we had a big debate in Joburg 2 weeks ago about the structural transformation and how PETA would go beyond extraction to deal with global warming, poverty, inequality, and especially add value, because Africa's been marginalized for so long. And no one could really explain why the PETA projects don't seem to have structural transformation at their heart. My whole issue of risk sharing, which you highlighted, Mansour, and I don't think I'm telling you anything new. If the World Bank is ignoring it in their projects, as the evaluation says, then I think that constitutes a very, very serious problem that should, create a large moratorium, a big pause, because it's big dams. We see the forecasts around demand and risk exchange being way, way off base. We know that there's a political motivation to be for PPPs because it moves spending off the budget, moves debt off the budget, creates contingent liabilities that the cabinet, can hide. Not that they want consciously to do that, but they're passing it to future generations. And over half of PPPs are getting renegotiated on average every 2 years. So this is penalizing the public sector in ways that are not seen because PPPs are secret. Last recommendation is that the committee promote its precept ensuring transparency and accountability at all levels. I work closely with the work of the Business 20, which, as you may know, at every G20 summit, the chief executive officers of the major transnational corporations meet with the heads of state, and the Business 20 present their recommendations, including for free flow of capital, removal of capital controls, the repatriation of profits, which is an essential part of making PPPs succeed. But it's also, without the proper controls, a siphon for, as this says, $1 trillion each year. So we see these large flows from south to north continuing, and the World Bank, I think, underestimates the infrastructure costs that are lost to corruption. We would make the case, along with the World Bank, that to achieve better outcomes, disclosure of contracts is absolutely essential, that we have to know the contributions and risk-bearing shares of governments, that we need information around procurement, as well as the allowing local government procurement, because you said, Mansour, that one of the goals was creating jobs, and so we need local procurement for that. Vigorous debate is being carried on in meetings like this at the World Bank. The meetings are not happening where the mega project pipelines are being created. Conversations are not happening there. So something's wrong. Something's wrong that the UN has attracted so many skilled, gifted people, and the committee has articulated so brilliantly what the risks and opportunities are. But when we get to the country level, I run into people who say their lives are at risk, their jobs are at risk, their families are unsafe, if they question a national infrastructure plan that is viewed as being in the strategic interest of the country. And even